Liana never expected that a single mistake from 2 years ago would still follow her like a shadow she couldn't outrun. Yet there she was, standing frozen in the middle of her tiny living room, watching an old news clip on her phone replay a moment she had tried so hard to forget. There she was on the screen, dressed in white, bouquet shaking in her hand, eyes wide with panic, running down the stone steps of the country's most expensive wedding venue. Behind her, reporters shouted her name. Guests gasped. Damian Blackwood stood at the altar, expression unreadable, looking like a man carved out of steel rather than flesh. She had left him at the altar. And the world hadn't forgotten. But the world didn't know why. The clip wasn't new. Someone on social media had dug it up again, probably because gossip never died. Liana sighed, tossed her phone aside and pressed her palms to her face. She had built a quiet life in a small corner of the city where no one cared who she used to be. Where no one even recognized her anymore. She'd worked hard for that peace. It seemed she wasn't allowed to keep it for long. Her phone buzzed again, this time a call. She considered ignoring it, but it was from her boss, Miriam, and ignoring Miriam led to consequences she didn't have the energy for. Hello. Liana answered, forcing her voice steady. Liana, you're not going to believe who just booked us. Miriam sounded breathless. Blackwood Industries. Liana's stomach dropped so fast she had to grip the counter for balance. Damian Blackwood? She managed to ask. Yes. Well, technically they're representative, but the system says the CEO made the request personally. And they specifically asked for you. It felt like the air left her lungs. Impossible. Damian didn't want to see her. He shouldn't want to. He should hate her. I can't take it, Liana said immediately. Pick someone else. No, Miriam's tone shifted into that firm, no-nonsense voice she used when making a decision for the entire team. This is a massive client. The biggest we've ever gotten. It could secure our bookings for a whole year. Miriam. And the CEO asked for you specifically. Miriam continued. That kind of request is not optional. Liana closed her eyes. The irony wasn't lost on her. She left him, yet here she was, being dragged back into his world by something as simple as a booking request. A request she knew he didn't make. Damian Blackwood didn't need to request anything. He simply ordered and the world bent to his will. He had never been the type to go through normal channels. If he wanted her found, he would have found her years ago. Someone else wanted her there. But who? Her mind flashed to Elias, Damian's half-brother. A man with a charming smile and a subtle cruelty that most people never noticed until it was too late. The last conversation she'd overheard between him and an unknown associate before her wedding still rang clearly in her memory. Damian doesn't love her. He needs her to secure the Blackwood deal, she's a pawn. She had stood outside that door, bouquet trembling, heart breaking quietly inside her chest. She had almost confronted Damian, almost demanded answers. But fear had spoken louder. Fear of being used. Fear of becoming a prop in some corporate war. Fear that she had mistaken control for love. So she ran. And 2 years later she still wasn't sure if it was the right decision or not. Liana. Miriam's voice broke through her thoughts. I need to confirm your availability now. Her throat tightened. She wanted to say no. She wanted to run again. But running had only brought her back to the same place, standing in the echo of a decision she never healed from. Fine, Liana whispered. But I'm only going to get the brief. If something feels off, I'm backing out. Nothing will be off. Miriam chirped. It's Blackwood Industries. They're known for professionalism. Liana didn't bother responding to that. She hung up, leaned against the counter and let out a slow, shaky breath. Damian Blackwood. She had thought she'd never hear his name attached to her life again. She wasn't ready to see him. She wasn't sure she would ever be. But someone clearly thought otherwise. She spent the rest of the day preparing in silence, gathering her notes, organizing her tablet, and mentally rehearsing how to maintain a professional distance. She braided her hair into something neat, chose a simple blouse and pants, and reminded herself that she was no longer the girl who'd run from the altar. She was just a wedding designer now. One who happened to have a very unfortunate past. If she kept her head down, did her job and left quickly, she wouldn't have to face him. At least, that was what she told herself as she entered the towering lobby of Blackwood Industries the next morning. The building was overwhelmingly large. A reminder of how different her world had been compared to his. She inhaled slowly, mentally prepared herself, and approached the receptionist. "Good morning," she said quietly. "I'm here for the event design briefing. Liana Brooks." The woman's eyes widened slightly. Liana recognized that look, recognition mixed with curiosity. Even after 2 years, her name still stirred whispers. "Yes, Miss Brooks. Mr. Blackwood is in a meeting, but you're requested to wait in the lounge." Her pulse spiked. "Mr. Blackwood?" she repeated. "As in Damien?" "Yes. He wanted to handle the project personally. That couldn't be right. Damien would never want to see her again." She swallowed hard. I wasn't told I'd be meeting him directly." The receptionist smiled politely. "He insisted." Liana's hands went cold. That confirmed it. Someone wanted her here. Someone who used Damien's name to force this meeting. And now she was trapped. She took a seat in the lounge, her breath uneven, her thoughts spinning. Maybe she could slip out. Maybe she could pretend she needed to use the restroom and vanish down the elevator. But before she could even stand, the door to the boardroom opened. She didn't need to look up to know who had stepped out. His presence filled the room before his footsteps did, calm, steady, authoritative. But she still lifted her eyes, and for the first time in 2 years, their gazes collided. Damien froze. Not with rage. Not with shock. But with something deeper. Something unreadable. It took every ounce of strength not to flinch. His voice was low, controlled, but she could hear the edge beneath it. "Liana." Her name sounded heavier than she expected, like it carried 2 years of unanswered questions. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. He took a slow step toward her. "Why are you here?" She stared at him, heart racing. "You requested this meeting." His brow tightened. "No," he said quietly. "I didn't." Her breath caught. Someone had brought her here. Someone who wanted this collision. Damien exhaled sharply, eyes locked on her like he was trying to unbury every secret she'd ever held. "You owe me the truth," he said. And for the first time since leaving him at the altar, Liana realized something chilling. Damien wasn't angry she ran. He was angry he never knew why. Liana had spent the entire morning convincing herself that she could do this professionally. That she could show up, complete the briefing, and leave without unraveling entirely. But as soon as Damien Blackwood stepped fully into the lounge, the careful wall she had built crumbled. He didn't speak immediately. He just looked at her, as though measuring whether she had changed, whether she had grown stronger, or whether she was still the girl who had run. His expression was controlled, his jaw tight, eyes sharp, but she could see the restrained tension behind it. He wasn't here to yell. He wasn't here to accuse. He was waiting. Waiting for her to explain something she didn't have the courage to say aloud. "I didn't request you," he repeated, quiet but firm. "Someone else made this appointment using my name." Her throat tightened. "Then, why did they do it? Why bring me here?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. Damien's eyes darkened slightly. "I don't know. But we're going to find out." She blinked, startled. His tone wasn't threatening, but it carried authority. It left no room to refuse. Somehow she knew that walking away now wouldn't be an option. Not if she wanted to leave without consequences. For a moment she considered fleeing again. But the truth was, even if she wanted to run, her heart had stopped letting her. She had spent 2 years avoiding him, avoiding this confrontation, avoiding the truth she hadn't admitted even to herself. She had never stopped loving him. She had run out of fear, out of pride, out of the feeling that she didn't belong in his world. But the love, stubborn and painful, had remained. I don't want to be here if it's," she started, struggling to find the words. "If it's not safe." "Safe?" he repeated as if surprised. "I don't see why it wouldn't be." "You don't know the person who booked me," she said carefully. "I do. I know exactly what they're capable of." His gaze sharpened. "Do you mean Elias?" Her eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected him to name him aloud. "Yes, Elias," she said. He set this up. I think he's trying to control you," Damien finished for her. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration flickering across his face. "I thought I had him under control, but clearly he's been working behind the scenes all along." For a long moment they simply looked at each other. 2 years of silence, misunderstanding, and pain were suspended in the quiet between them. Liana felt a mix of fear, longing, and anger. Damien's presence, though composed, made her chest tighten. She hated how much she still reacted to him. "Damien," she said softly, "I didn't run because I didn't love you. I ran because I thought you didn't love me. I thought the wedding was about the deal, not about us." He blinked, almost imperceptibly. "The wedding, it wasn't about a deal." "Not ever," he said. His voice was low, careful, but there was a strange intensity there she hadn't heard before. "I proposed to you because I wanted you. Not the deal. Not anything else. You." Her heart stuttered at his words, but she quickly turned her attention back to the situation. "Then why now? Why have you brought me here? Or rather, why didn't you know someone booked me under your name?" Damien sighed, his expression tightening. "Elias." He ran a hand down his face. "He's always been clever. I underestimated how far he'd go. This isn't just about the company. It's about me, about you, and how far he can push us." Liana's stomach dropped. She had expected tension, confrontation, maybe even anger, but she hadn't expected to feel relief. Relief that Damien's intentions had never been what she feared. Relief that he hadn't abandoned her in spite. Relief that, in some way, he had tried to protect her even if she had run. "Then what do we do now?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "I won't be a pawn in anyone's game again." He took a step closer. "Then we do what we have to do. We keep our heads. And we work together to make sure Elias can't manipulate this situation." Her pulse quickened, not just from fear or tension but from being near him. She hadn't realized how much she had missed the way his presence filled the room, the quiet authority in his posture, the subtle pull he had over everyone and everything around him. And yet the anger was still there. The anger she felt for him leaving her without explanation, the anger for the years of uncertainty and pain. That anger mixed with longing made the room feel smaller, heavier. "I can't just forget everything," she said finally. "I can't pretend that those 2 years didn't matter." "I'm not asking you to forget," he said gently. "I'm asking you to trust me this once. Let me show you the truth before you judge me." Her fingers tightened around her tablet. "You're asking a lot." He lifted his hand slightly, not touching her, but enough to indicate he was willing to respect her space. "I know. And I'm asking because I want you in my life. If you let me." Liana swallowed hard, torn between years of self-preservation and the undeniable pull toward him. I can't promise anything," she said, voice barely audible. "But I'll listen. I'll work with you on this project. That's all I can offer." "That's more than enough," he said. There was a fleeting softness in his eyes before it hardened again. "But know this, Liana. If anyone, especially Elias, tries to use you again, I will not let it happen. Not to you. Not to us." She nodded, her throat tight. There was something about the way he said, "us," that made her chest ache with emotions she had buried deep. She wanted to hate him, to resent him, but she couldn't. And that realization scared her more than anything else. The day continued, and they worked in relative silence, preparing plans for an event Damien had to host at Blackwood Industries. Liana maintained her professionalism, but every glance toward him, every subtle movement, reminded her of the history between them. And every reminder was accompanied by an unspoken question. Could they ever rebuild what had been broken? Later, during a brief break, Liana stepped into a quieter corridor and allowed herself a moment to think. She needed to understand Elias's motives. She needed to know why he would orchestrate such a manipulative plan, risking not just her but Damien as well. And if she could figure that out, perhaps she could protect herself and, unintentionally, Damien too. When she returned to the boardroom, Damien was waiting, reviewing notes. He didn't look up immediately, but when he did, his gaze met hers, sharp, calculating, protective. He held her attention, and without saying a word, it reminded her why she had left him. Not because she didn't love him, but because she didn't know if she could survive him. Now, standing here, she realized that running wasn't the solution anymore. He had to face the truth. And the truth was, Damien Blackwood wasn't just a name from her past. He was here. He was real. And for better or worse, he was about to become a part of her present. And then, just as she opened her mouth to ask about Elias again, Damien leaned back slightly in his chair and said, casually but pointedly, "Someone wants you to be a pawn. I need to know if you'll let them." She stared at him. Her stomach dropped. "Or," he continued, his voice almost a growl under the calm, if you'll stand with me. Liana's breath caught. This wasn't the project briefing she had imagined. This was a test. And whether she wanted to admit it or not, she knew she couldn't run this time. Liana's thoughts kept circling back to Elias. His calculated smile, the subtle ways he manipulated situations to serve his own interests, and how far he had been willing to go to interfere with her life and Damien's. She had tried to prepare herself for what she might face, but nothing truly prepared her for the tension that filled Blackwood Industries that morning. She found herself alone in a quiet hallway, gathering her courage. She needed answers. She needed to understand why Elias had brought her back into Damien's life, why he had orchestrated everything to make her feel like a pawn once more. And maybe, deep down, she needed to understand whether Damien truly wanted her, not as a piece in some game but as the person he loved. The conversation with Elias wasn't easy. She confronted him in a small, empty office that smelled faintly of polished wood and old leather. He looked calm, as though he had expected her. "You came," he said almost pleasantly. "I wondered how long it would take." "I need to know," she said firmly. "Why did you do it? Why bring me back here under his name? Why try to manipulate me again?" Her voice didn't tremble as much as she had feared. There was determination there, mixed with the frustration of someone who had been pushed around one too many times. Elias leaned back in his chair, the corner of his mouth curling. "You've always underestimated the stakes, Liana. Damien's life, his empire, he's built it on control. And sometimes, to test it, to make sure he doesn't become complacent, people like you are used. You weren't a pawn, technically, but you were convenient." Liana's stomach sank. "Convenient? You put me in danger. You made me feel like I was expendable. Do you have any idea what that does to a person?" Elias shrugged. "I don't concern myself with feelings. I concern myself with results. Damien had weaknesses. You were one of them. And I needed to see if he could protect what mattered, or if he would fail." Her mind reeled. He had planned this all along. He had manipulated her, orchestrated the meeting under Damien's name, and even now he treated her as a tool in his schemes. Liana realized that everything she had feared, being used, being manipulated, had been true, but not by Damien. He had only ever tried to protect her. When she returned to the main office, Damien was waiting. His expression shifted the moment he saw her. There was that same intensity, the same weight of unspoken feelings. "You met him," he stated, not a question but a recognition. "Yes," she said, keeping her tone even. "He told me why he did it. He wanted to use me against you. He tried to manipulate me, to get me to act in ways that would have hurt you and the company." Damien's eyes narrowed slightly, though it didn't feel like anger toward her. It felt more like restrained frustration. "And did you?" She shook her head. "No. I didn't let him. I won't ever." Her words carried the conviction of someone who had finally claimed their power back. Damien's gaze softened slightly, just enough for her to notice, but his hands remained firmly on the table, grounding him in authority. "You need to understand something, Liana," he said quietly, yet every word carried weight. "The day you left the wedding, I wasn't using you. Not then, not ever. I proposed because I wanted you safe. I wanted you protected. Elias was planning to hurt you, physically if necessary, to get to me. That's why the wedding happened the way it did. I was trying to shield you." Her chest tightened. The years of misunderstanding, the guilt she had carried for abandoning him, the fear that she had run from love, all pressed down on her. She had left the one person who had genuinely cared about her safety and her life. And she had done it out of fear, not knowing the truth. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered, barely audible. "Why didn't you explain?" Damien's eyes flickered with regret. "Because you had to make your choice on your own. Because I couldn't risk revealing everything and putting you in more danger. I thought distance might keep you safe. I thought, maybe you would understand one day." Liana swallowed, a wave of conflicting emotions flooding through her. Anger, relief, guilt, love, they all collided, leaving her feeling raw. I didn't know," she admitted. I thought you didn't love me. I thought I was just another piece in your world." "No," he said firmly. "You were never a piece. You were the one thing I couldn't live without. And for 2 years I hoped you'd see that eventually." The words hit her harder than she expected. The silence that followed was heavy, but it was no longer filled with fear or tension. It was filled with something fragile, something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Hope. Their moment was interrupted by a message on Damien's phone. He glanced at it and frowned. Elias is attempting to expose you as a weakness at the press conference this afternoon. He's trying to spin the narrative, make it look like your involvement is a liability for me, and for the merger. Liana felt her stomach drop. She had thought she had left the dangerous games behind. But now she realized that running wasn't an option anymore. Not today. Not ever. Damien stood, and this time there was no hesitation. He approached her and placed a hand lightly on her shoulder. "We handle this together," he said. "Whatever he tries, whatever he says, we handle it together." Her pulse quickened. "Together," she echoed. The word felt foreign yet natural, heavy with promise and responsibility. The press conference arrived sooner than either of them expected. Damien addressed the room, standing confidently while reporters jostled for position. When a question about her involvement came up, he didn't hesitate. "This woman," he said, gesturing toward Liana, "is not a weakness. She's my partner. She is capable, intelligent, and the one person I trust more than anyone else in this world. And I will protect her no matter the cost." The room fell silent, reporters exchanging glances, murmurs spreading. Liana felt her heart lift in a way she hadn't experienced since the wedding day she had run from. Damien had chosen her, publicly, without hesitation, without question. And this time it wasn't a shield to protect her from danger. It was his choice. After the conference, in the quiet of his office, Damien looked at her. His usual composure softened just enough that she could see the man behind the CEO mask. The man who had loved her before, who had waited, and who had never given up. "I want you," he said simply. "No deals, no games, no manipulation. Just you. Will you let me try again?" Liana felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She nodded, slowly, deliberately. "Yes," she said. "This time. I choose you. Because I want to." He reached for her hand, holding it firmly but gently. "Then don't run this time," he said, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Not from me. Not from us." He smiled, a mix of relief, love, and exhaustion. "I won't," she promised. And in that moment all the pain, confusion, and misunderstandings of the past 2 years melted away. She had left him once, thinking she was protecting herself. But now she understood. Love wasn't about fear or control. It was about trust, courage, and choosing someone despite the risks. Damien didn't just get his empire back that day. He got the one person he had always wanted. And Liana didn't just reclaim her safety. She reclaimed the love she had run from, the love that had always been waiting for her to return. Together they stepped forward, not into a world of games, manipulation, or fear, but into a future they would build as equals, as partners, and as two people who had finally chosen each other without hesitation or doubt.